So previously, AT led product and go-to-market functions for the healthcare division of LexisNexis, as well as leading roles in corporate strategy and mergers and acquisitions at the company. Prior to that, he was in consulting with Bain and Company, serving clients across multiple industries with a focus on growth strategy, process improvement, and customer loyalty. He has also worked for several startup companies in sales and operations roles. AT holds an industrial engineering degree from Georgia Tech and an MBA from Harvard Business School. I'm going to hand it over now to AT to continue our conversation.
Great. Well, thank you, Risha, for having me here. Excited to talk things entrepreneurship and product development. I've made many mistakes and have lots of learnings over the years. So happy to share a few of those with you here. Put together just a short presentation. So let me pull that up here. Make sure folks can see that.
Yes.
All right. Well, great. So really, as Risha said, talk a little bit about how to develop a product and how do you do that simply and build something that customers want. And so I'll get into that in a minute, but let me just give you little bit more color so you understand why I'm talking about some of these things and experiences. So a little bit just further background. Grew up in Florida. I came to Atlanta to go to Georgia Tech and have loved Atlanta since then. But as I was telling Risha earlier, was involved in some startups in college. But back, when I was in school, that was frowned upon. It was, well, why don't you go work for Home Depot or Coke? And so there weren't many resources. So I'm glad to see there's some more resources around, like that Risha and her team have for that. So dabbled in some startups. I was an engineer though, and I realized I knew nothing about business. And so that's what's led me to do some consulting with a company called Bain and Company. Ended up being there close to 10 years before and after business school. Just love the people and learning, but always still dabbled in startups on the side. I think once you've got some of that itch to be in control and build a startup, it's hard to let that go. So always loved doing that. And then when I left Bain, I got a unique opportunity to go be part of a team that was building a corporate startup. So a little bit of the best of both worlds of a company that was a big data analytics company, and they were starting a healthcare business within that. So you get a little bit of those best of both worlds. If you get to act like a startup, but yet the financial backing of a parent company and not having to go out and raise money on a shoestring budget. So that was a neat experience. Got to be part of the team that worked with the CEO to set the strategy, led some acquisitions, ran some of the product lines for a couple of years. And so we took that from nothing to a $100 million business in 4 years. So it's a neat little ride to see a lot of different stages of the startup you would see, because it's very different at zero versus 5 million versus 50 million versus 100 million. And so I got to see a lot of different things there. And so that led me to come join Atlanta Ventures a little over 5 years ago, just helping support early stage entrepreneurs. And we do that in 3 areas. The first is we have a studio where we co-found our own businesses from scratch with entrepreneurs. So we're all entrepreneurs ourselves. We love starting businesses. We've got a spreadsheet of over 100 ideas, and it's just meeting with great entrepreneurs who are passionate about a space and doing discovery and going to build together. The second area is we support entrepreneurs with early stage investing in software recurring revenue businesses to help them with a couple $100,000 up to a couple $1 million checks that have some early passionate paying customers. And then the third area is just lots of resources and events for entrepreneurs. I'll share those at the end. We've got blog posts, founder stories, podcasts, tools and templates. One I'd encourage you all to check out. There's a weekly one called 5 and Thrive. Literally 5 minutes. It highlights 3 or 4 startups in the Atlanta area doing something interesting, whether it's a new product launch or a exit or a raise or hiring. So it's a great way to stay connected with folks. And then last thing I'll say in the upper right, I've got three boys at home. So that keeps me busy on the home front and endless learnings on how to talk about entrepreneurship and being a part of their lives as well. So, all right, enough about me. You guys are probably tired of that. So we jump in here, got a couple areas, and this may be a little counterintuitive, but I'm going to spend a fair amount of time about how to build an effective product that has nothing to do with actually building the product. And the reason is I think this is one of the number one mistakes that I've made and that I've seen entrepreneurs make all the time, is they rush to go build product. And why is that? It's normal, it's natural. As an entrepreneur, you're all doers, right? You just want to go see it and go build it and show progress, right? And when you're building a product, I can show progress. I can show reason, hey, look at my app, look at this version of this, look at these cool features. I can show that I'm making progress. But our experience is most entrepreneurs build too soon. And so I'm going to talk through what are some of the steps that help you really vet that idea before you build anything and why that's so important. So I'm going to start there, then I'll jump into a few things of how you tie the product into the go-to-market, because product is a part of a broader go-to-market motion. Go through a couple examples and then we'll wrap up. But as questions come in, Risha or anybody, feel free to call them out. All right. So first area here is this is a framework that we use in our studio as we're starting a business and an idea. And this is one that spends a lot of time. It's very iterative, but I think this is mission critical to finding a great idea that's even worth building a product for. And so I highly encourage you to spend time going through a process like this. There's other frameworks and tools out there. Feel free to use one that makes sense to you, but let me talk you through how we think about it. And I'll give you some of the examples and lessons learned. So this framework revolves around the problem, the market, the customer, and the business model. So I'll start with the problem. This is the first thing to do. If I see 10 entrepreneurs, especially early ones, and ask them, what problem are you solving? They don't have an answer. I've got this product that has these cool features and look at this thing it can do. Or I've got this AI, blockchain, crypto, insert buzzword startup. But they don't really understand the problem they're solving. And this is so critical because at the end of the day, you could build the coolest tech, but if it's not solving a problem, nobody's going to buy it. And so what does it really mean to understand the problem? You've probably heard of the term customer discovery, but it's a term we use where you're going around and you're literally talking to potential customers. And you start that process in an unbiased way. And you're literally just asking people, hey, what are you working on? What's going well? What are some of the projects you're doing? What challenges do you have? You have this challenge here. Tell me more. Just lots of why questions going deeper and really understanding some of the things like how often does it happen? Man, this happens every day and we have to deal with it. Or like, yeah, this happened, several months ago. Like how frequent is the problem? Then I like to look at what do they do about it? They'll be going through, they're saying, this is the problem. Well, what did you do about it? Oh, well, it happens all the time. We just let it go and deal with it the next day. Or it's like, man, we were up till 3 a.m. trying to fix it because it's mission critical for our customers. And so you're looking for some of those signs of a problem that's frequent, that they're already trying to solve. And I think that's an important one is, to me, if they're not already trying to solve it, it's probably not a big problem. There's a lot of things in life that are what I call annoyances. They're an annoyance, but not worth my time to do something about it. Versus a problem that somebody's already trying to solve is a great sign that it's a real must-have problem. And so as you find that it's something they're already trying to solve, I don't care if they're trying to solve it with pencil and paper or an Excel spreadsheet or a phone call or Post-it notes. The level of tech doesn't matter, but it's the fact that they're already trying to do something. And so that leads to another set of questions you ask. Well, tell me more about what your solution is. Why do you use Post-it notes? Why does that work? Why does that not work? Why do you use an Excel sheet? Did you ever look at software to try and solve this or tools out there? Yes. Oh, well, what did you look at? What did you like? What did you not like? Why did you purchase it? Yes or no. If you used it, how was the experience, right? Or like, why did you never even look to try and solve the problem? So lots of questions really around the problem. And the last piece I'll say on the problem is something that's mentioned unprompted and you hear from multiple people. And so what this means is that there's a lot of biasing you can do in the customer discovery process. I can go say, hey, Risha, is such and such a problem? And she may say yes, but I've already biased her by asking her about that specific problem. Versus I ask her, hey, Risha, what are you working on? What are some of the challenges? And she mentions something. And then I talk to Denise and Bob and Michael, and they all say the same things, unprompted. Those are all great signs that I'm onto a problem that must have mission critical part of their everyday life and workflow. And as I'm doing this problem customer discovery, if you've noticed, I haven't mentioned anything about pitching a potential solution or building a product. I'm just talking to potential customers about what their problems are and looking for some of those ones that are must have and that are mentioned across multiple folks. So that's sort of the problem area. The next area is on the market. So I'm starting to feel like I understand there's a problem around, this theme. Well, now let me move into a little bit of some of the market research. So what does this mean? One of my favorite tricks to do is just go Google some keywords about what the problem you're thinking of and see what pops up. Sometimes you'll see a list of 10 competitors all pop up. Great. Go look at each of their websites. How do they describe the product or what they're doing? What's their problem? You can probably view demos online. Do you notice some commonalities or differences? Is there a white space? Does it look already saturated? Or you start searching some keywords and nothing comes up that's relevant. Hey, maybe this is a brand new market or opportunity to go do something. So you can do some things like that. And then there's some tricks around just understanding this market. Where has it been and where is it going? Like if I look back, what sort of happened in the last 5 to 10 years on this space? What's happening today? You can read some industry articles or folks who are experts in their blogs or thought pieces. And then where do I believe it's going? Because one of the things around the market is I see a mistake I see a lot of entrepreneurs make is they build something that could be a great business, but it's just a small market or a market that doesn't have these, what I call external tailwinds to grow. And you can build a great business in that, but your upside is capped. And it takes just as much time or effort to build a small business as a big business. And so I encourage folks to spend the time when you understand the problem, how big is this problem? Not just today, but how big could it be in 5 to 10 years from now? Because you could be in a little small niche that has an opportunity to expand over the next 5 to 10 years. Or you could be in something that's already got some tailwinds in growing. And so one of the things I like to look for, we use in our studio is the concept that what is something that 5 to 10 years from now, it's a no-brainer, it's going to happen. But it just hasn't happened yet today for certain reasons, whether it's regulatory or consumer sentiment or the product tech's not quite there yet. And so looking for some of those signs that this market could be a good one to get and that has some of those external tailwinds, so like take, nobody could have predicted COVID, but obviously remote work was happening before COVID. But when those tailwinds kicked in, it really accelerated a lot of remote work things, right? Or, obviously the rise of the internet, 20-something years ago, or smartphones 10 years ago. There were those external tailwinds that accelerated something that was already starting to happen. So I look for some of those. And then lastly, around the market, I think through how am I going to be positioned in the market to win versus competitors? And so I care less about what they're doing, but more about where am I going to be positioned? Am I targeting a different customer segment? Is my product going to uniquely do something different that theirs doesn't do? What is my competitive advantage? And there could be lots of reasons why, but what is my advantage going to be? So, and there's an iterative process there. Like I might start doing some market research and have to go back to the problem. But now, all right, I've got a good handle of the problem. I've got an understanding that this could be a good market to be in. The next thing I go to is down on the customer side. Well, now I'm going back to some of those same people I've started the customer discovery with and really diving deeper into now, tell me a little bit more about it. So you've tried this problem before and this didn't work. Why this? Well, what about something like this? Now you start introducing some potential solutions or ideas to see how they react to the importance of that solving the problem. And again, I'm looking for consistency to the point where I've got a unique target customer, and a target customer is not, it's for everybody. A target customer is very specific. Go as niche as you can on whether it's demographics, psychographics, geography, stage. How specifically can you identify a target customer that's got one problem that you can deliver 10x better? And so this stage of the process is really honing in on, all right, I got this problem in market, but like, how do I really hone in and focus on this customer and this problem to know how to go build the first version of the product? And so I still built nothing at this stage. One way I know that now as I'm into the customer stage, I'm looking for what I call authentic demand. And that's a term that you've probably heard from folks before. But one way I think about authentic demand is people are already leaning in and ready for this problem to be solved. So when you're talking to customers, and this is an art versus a science, you're asking lots of questions. And I've been on those customer discovery calls where I'm asking questions and they're literally just answering my question. Yes. Oh, that's an issue. Yeah, we have that. Yeah, that sounds great. And they're not really leaning in versus there are others, they're asking questions like, when is this ready? How much can I buy? Where's this available at? And so you're looking for some of those signs of authentic demand that they're leaning into those conversations. Then once I've found that, then I go do some product mock-ups. And this is still not building a product, no development. And based on your capability, it could be a drawing on pencil and paper or PowerPoint of what it could look like. You could use a tool like Figma or something else. You could do some no-code solutions depending on but it's not something that's working. It's something to show them this is what it could do. And to me, the number one true sign of authentic demand is if you show them something like that, they say, yes, let's go build this together. And so when you have authentic demand, you will have customers that will buy or sign up or agree to partner to build it with you because they know whatever you're doing is better than what they're doing today. And they want to be a part of helping you build that because that makes a difference in how it can impact, their business. And so now I get to this point where I've got 3 to 5 customers leaning in that say, hey, I want to build this with you. And I'll talk some more later about how to specifically do that. But they're what I call development partners. They will pay for the product before it's built because they want to build it with you. And so now you've got the signs of I've got a problem. I feel good about the market in my point there. I've got customers willing to lean in. Now let me go do one more thing before I start building. And that's that one on the right is some of the business model side, right? And so all this means is just now starting to map out, hey, if this works like I think it's going to work, what could this be, right? Hey, I think I could charge people $100 a month, and I think it would cost me $10 a month to make the product. All right, there's some margin there, and I may need some tech folks or some marketing folks, and all right, this would start to break even when I get to, X number of units sold or $1 million in revenue, whatever it may be. And you're just doing some of that math because there's been times where based on these customer conversations that are leaning in, they're like, oh yeah, man, yeah, we'd love to use that. But the price they're willing to pay, let's just say $10 a month, and it costs you $50 a month. All right, that's not an economic equation that's going to work or scale up. And so there's some revisions that may need to happen there. And these are all assumptions. Every financial model I've ever built is wrong. That's okay. That's normal. But you're trying to test what assumptions are going to matter. And does this make sense? And am I happy with the outcome if this were to be successful? Because as we all know, it's hard to build a business. And most don't succeed. But you want to make sure that if it does succeed, you're building something that's going to be a good outcome for you and your team. So you keep going through this cycle and iterating through problem, market, customer, and business model. And this is all pre-building the product. But if you do this right, you will be that much more confident in the problem you're solving, in the authentic demand, in the customer's ready, and it will help you build a better product. 80 to 90% of the features you build in your first product are going to be wasted. I know from experience. That's just how it is, right? You think you want all these, they want all these things, and they'll tell you they want all these things, but it's most waste. But as you go through this process and build with folks, you'll have much better success at being efficient in what you're building and how you're building. So let me pause here on this framework. But I think this is important. I know there's some stuff in the chat here. Let me pull that up and see a few ones here.
So AT, and I can run through this for you. One question that we have is, what if the problem is already solved by someone else and you're just trying to sell your own?
So what if the product is already solved by somebody else and you're trying to sell your own?
Mm-hmm.
So I would go deeper into that statement. And so I would push, how do you challenge that statement? And so if I go back to the framework I talked about here on the market side, part of the market side of the framework is back to that, why am I going to be different than competitors? And you have to believe you have a competitive differentiation versus those. It could be I have a better product. It could be I have a better location. It could be I have, a services component that makes a difference. It could be I'm targeting a different customer segment, right? There's plenty of products out there that like, hey, there's this big, like take a CRM, Salesforce has these massive CRMs for big companies and they do all these great things, right? But there's a lot of small niches that need just a basic CRM. And so, yes, a CRM is already built and out there, but you're targeting a different segment with that. And so one of the things I would encourage you to do there is, what is going to be your differentiation? Because if you're the same as everybody else, it's a hard slog to move forward. But why am I going to be different? And find either a different target customer segment or a different geography or a different product feature, something that makes you different and helps you compete and be different than what's out there. Good question. Thanks,
AT. Another question we have is, what are some industries you don't advise getting into?
That's a loaded question. I'd first answer that with, one of the most important things I think for entrepreneurs to do is find a space you're passionate about. Could be healthcare, could be fintech, could be supply chain, could be climate change, doesn't matter. But the point is, when you find a space you're passionate about, my experience is those entrepreneurs are that much more motivated to spend the time, deal with all the ups and downs, and really care about solving problems in that space. The entrepreneurs I see who just go after an idea because they think it could be a big business tend to wash out much more than those who are truly passionate about the space, because this is hard and it's a long journey. This is a 7 to 10 year commitment of your life if you go build a business into something. And so you want to make sure it's something you're passionate about. So I would encourage you first, whether you think it's a good industry or not, find something you're passionate about and or have expertise in or want to build expertise in. But specifically to the industry function, some industries are different, right? I mean, there are some that hardware plus software or, hardware in general is hard, right? You got to constantly build units and push units. Businesses where you have a lot of one-time revenue, you go sell a deal and then the next year you got to go sell the same deal versus something that's on a recurring or subscription. I think recurring subscription type businesses are easier to scale up once you get those going. There are certain industries where just the margins are low or the customers don't have much money to spend versus an industry where they have more money to spend or the customers feel that pain or demand. So, but even within any industry, as part of this framework, you're looking for problems or niches where it's real and must have, and you can find a good one. But I would say the passion is more important than finding a good or bad. This framework will help you figure out if it's good or bad based on where you're going after, but find the space you're passionate about and start there.
Thanks, AT. We have a few more questions, but I want to kind of tease them first, and you let me know whether you're going to tackle it later or you want to tackle it now. So one talks about kind of finding a technical team and possibility of that. I don't know if you're tackling that later as well. And the other one is about business idea protection tied to market research, and whether or not you're going to tackle that later or you want to tackle
I'll tackle them now. So on the technical side, founders run the gamut, right? From those that are fully technical and can do their own coding to folks who have no idea what a coding language means, right? And that's normal. You will, over time, if you build the business, need some technical capabilities. The good news in today's world, as I mentioned, like with Figma or some of the no-code tools, there's a lot of tools out there that you actually don't need to have deep technical expertise to start an early version that you can show people and move through some of these steps. So I don't think it's as big a requirement as people think out of the gates. I can do all of this research right here in the framework, in customer conversations with zero technical ability. And then as you start moving forward and building something, yes, you may need some technical side, right? Now there's different flavors of that. Some folks find like a technical advisor that's kind of there just to help them think through it and work through it. Some folks find a technical co-founder that they trust and can help build with them. Some folks use like an agency or development shop to go get a first version out there. Some folks hire some junior programmers at Georgia State or Georgia Tech to go get a first version out there. There's plenty of ways to do that. But one thing I will say as a founder, you want to be conversant in the language. What I mean by that is you need to know enough about tech to be dangerous, to be able to ask the right questions. And so I would encourage you to attend some events. There's plenty of stuff you can read online just to understand some of the basics of how coding and development technology work, because there are many horror stories of folks who think they can just outsource the tech, and they either have co-founder problems or they give it to an agency and the agency tells them it's 15 grand. And then, a couple of weeks in, they tell them, oh, it's gonna be another 50 grand. And then they still don't have good code. So there's lots of horror stories that can happen if you don't know how to ask the right questions. And you can do that, like I said, either through your own knowledge, which I would encourage some, but also advisors that you can trust. And Georgia State probably has some resources, I'm guessing, to folks that you can talk to and can set you up there. But good question, but short, long-winded way to say, you don't need it to go prove an idea, but it will become important down the road. But one thing you can do now while you're still early on in your career and building ideas is start being understanding of how some of those things work, just so you can ask the right questions and know how to manage it. All right, and then the other question, Risha, remind me.
So the other one was market research. How do you protect your idea within that space while you're trying to tie into what you were talking about before?
Yeah, great question. So this is another good point. I'm glad somebody asked this. There's different schools of thought. Some people are very protective of ideas, others are very open. And here's AT's 2 cents for what it's worth. Way more entrepreneurs are overprotective of their idea, and it doesn't matter. Here's a secret. I guarantee you, somebody somewhere else in the world has the exact same idea as you. There are no unique ideas out there. Somebody else is working on it. And so it's naive to think that your idea is that special. Now, I'll put a caveat, right? If you've developed some groundbreaking new technology that allows us to drink seawater or something like that, that's never that may be a little bit different, but for the vast majority of business ideas out there, somebody else is already probably doing something like that. And so what does that mean? I see a lot of entrepreneurs that get bogged down early before they even do any of these steps because they're so hesitant to talk about their idea. And so they go try and file all these patents, which is time and money. They go try and be protective so they don't get the good feedback that they would get by doing this process. In my experience is most of those are not as successful. They waste a lot of time and money on things that don't frankly matter. Even if you have all the patents and trademarks and stuff, and I'm not saying you don't necessarily need to do that, but there's still going to be lawsuits, or could be or not down the road, whether you have it or not. So I encourage folks to think about what's the bare minimum I can do, maybe file a provisional patent, but what's more important is getting the feedback. And if you're not comfortable sharing the feedback with the market and testing the problem, you're not going to get the feedback you need to know that you've got the right customer segments and authentic demand and folks that are leaning in. And so I would encourage you, challenge any hypotheses that in very few situations does all of that stuff matter. For the vast majority of businesses, people start, we're fully open, all of our ideas, we'll share them with anybody. We don't care. It's all about the execution, not the idea.